Hi guys, so today we're going to talk about scientist stereotypes. So I know that the other day you guys drew a scientist. It asked you to close your eyes to picture what your scientist was doing, where your scientist was, what your scientist was wearing, what tools or equipment your scientist was using or holding, and what they looked like. And then you drew your picture trying to include as many details as you can. And this is actually something that a study was conducted on across middle school students throughout the nation. And they asked them to do the same activity, to think about a scientist and to try their best to draw it. And what we noticed, or what was discovered in the study, is that there are certain patterns that kept coming up all across the country. So one of the stereotypes that came up in this study was that scientists are male. Okay, so we looked at the data from all of the drawings that the people in the study did, and on average, right, when middle school students age 9 through 13 in the US were asked to draw a scientist, 72% of the scientists that they drew were male, right? So that's a large majority. When we look at the reality of actual scientists out practicing in the field, currently, females actually make up 43% of the working scientists and engineers, so a much higher number than our drawings would indicate. And when we look at scientists under 29 years old, females actually make up 56% of that population, so they actually have the majority. So this is a stereotype that happens a lot, that we see a lot, that most scientists are male. And when we look at the actual data, right, that's not really the case. Another stereotype that came up a lot in this study was that most of the scientists are chemists. So when we look at the data, right, on average, when the students were asked to draw a scientist, 87% of the scientists that they drew were chemists. When we look at the reality, right, chemists typically only make up 7% of working scientists. So a very, very small margin actually fall into the chemistry field, as opposed to the student drawings where it was the overwhelming majority. And the reason that this happens is there's actually so many different and varied science fields that most of the population is kind of evenly split between all of these different options and professions. So what happens is when we think of scientists or we draw scientists, the typical picture, right, is a white, older male with crazy hair, working with chemicals and having some sort of explosion. And this is pretty consistent when we have middle school students draw a scientist. And the reality is nothing like that. So we're just working on trying to break these stereotypes, break these kind of images that are in our head, and replace them with the reality, which is there are lots of different people in lots of different fields doing lots of different things in science, right? So when we talk about reality, there are scientists of every race, every gender, every size, age, background in all of these different science fields. So one of the ways that scientists are kind of pushing back against this stereotype is there is a hashtag called Scientists Who Selfie, and it encourages lots of different scientists in lots of different fields to take a selfie of themselves at their job, to indicate that, you know, there is a very wide range of backgrounds in people that are scientists. So in the first picture here, there's a young woman who posted she is a microbiologist, right? So she's in the lab. You can see she's working with a microscope. In the middle picture, we have an engineer looking at different types of data. And then in our picture over here to the right, we have an apicologist, somebody who is working with and studying bees. Okay, so wide range of backgrounds already, none of them a chemist. These are some wildlife biologists. They are working outdoors, collecting data on fish up near the Arctic. This was a scientist who went up into space and was an astronaut collecting different data and doing different experiments in space. Okay. And then this is me, right? Miss Krisnak. I am a trained geologist and paleontologist. I go out every summer to Montana and I do field work out there. I get to dig up dinosaurs and then I get to help bring them back to the lab, research them, put them together. And it's a lot of fun, right? So I'm a teacher and I get to do teaching, work with students all year long, which is great. And then in the summer, I go out west and I'm a paleontologist. So we're really going to be working this year in this class to kind of break that idea of all scientists are chemists and they're working with beakers, right? Because there are lots of different fields of science that you could go into, and hopefully something at some point in this class will kind of spark your interest, and I can get you kind of interested and excited about a specific field, whether it's chemistry or something else. So that's what we're going to be working on this year, is trying to break these stereotypes open.